Good morning. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, the unapologetically progressive Sunday morning political news show for Indiana. Our opening theme is by Hoosier singer-songwriter Leslie Nuss, and my name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. On today's show, a war-ending deal between the U.S. and Iran. Does Charlie Brown finally kick the football this time? Elon Musk becomes the world's first trillionaire. Mere centibillionaire Bill Gates testifies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, election results from Tuesday's primaries, and plenty of Indiana news sprinkled throughout. All of that and much more. But before we begin, you know the drill. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content. We don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even if that's not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And if a paid subscription isn't in the cards for you right now, that's okay. You can still help by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding our content to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. Follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it is PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at now. Let us welcome this week's panelists, a pair of returning guests, as we double dip in the northeast quadrant of the state. First, the Democratic candidate for State House District 81 up there in Fort Wayne. It's Sharon Wight. Sharon, welcome back.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Glad to have you. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties there. Hope everything's okay on your end. You snuck in under the limbo bar just in the nick of time there. Fantastic. Well, we always love having you here. It is great to have you with us on this fine Sunday morning. And let us welcome in our other guest this week. He flirted with a state house run himself, maybe even got to first base. It is the voice of the youth, Reece Axel Adams. Reece, welcome.
Morning. Give me just a second. My cat is at my window, and I need to let him in so he does not interrupt our stream. I'll be right back.
Listen, it's a treat to get a cat bomb on the broadcast whenever you get one, and here we are, not even 5 minutes into the show. Reece, you got to show us the cat when you come back, so hopefully we get to see that. So while we wait for Reece to get his animal situation straightened out there, Sharon, tell folks where they can find out about your campaign.
We're back.
Hello, darling.
This is AP, or Aaron Purr for long.
Nice. Very nice.
Either you are a wee man or that is a large cat, Reece.
He's a very big boy. He likes his food and his naps. Yes. No, he's very big.
Don't we all? Sharon, give us that website for your campaign really quick, because I did offer you that plug. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, absolutely. It is Elect Sharon Wight. So that is Elect Sharon, SHARON, and last name is WIGHT.com. And on June 25th in the evening at the Washington Township Community Center up here in Fort Wayne, I will be having a campaign event. I don't know whether to call it a campaign launch or just a party, but a place for you to come and get to know me a little bit better face to face. And it is the day after the anniversary of the overturn of Roe versus Wade. And there is a very specific reason for that. So come visit me on that day.
Very good. Thank you. And we will, I'll give you another chance to talk about that here at the end of the show. But for now, let's go ahead and jump in. We've got a big old week's worth of stories we got to cover here. And we're going to start where we have started many weeks recently, and that is in the Middle East. And no, seriously, this time, if you believe President Trump, a deal to end the conflict is imminent, just like last week. And the week before that, and 3 dozen times before that. Last Sunday, we saw the most serious escalation in weeks as Iran fired missiles at Israel after an Israeli attack on the suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Houthis in Yemen also fired missiles at Israel, potentially opening another front. In the Strait of Hormuz, an Iranian drone downed a U.S. helicopter, prompting a wave of U.S. airstrikes on the Islamic Republic and a volley of retaliatory attacks on U.S. allies in the region. The sides exchanged fire 3 times. By the middle of the week and Thursday morning, Trump vowed to hit Iran, quote, very hard tonight, and seize Karg Island, through which 90% of the country's oil exports passed, before reversing course and announcing a deal was imminent only hours later. On Friday, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who has been leading negotiations between the two countries, seemed to confirm that an agreement was close, quote, on all fronts, including Lebanon. On Saturday, Trump said the deal could be signed as soon as today, but we might be back right where we started this week as Israel launched a new round of attacks on Beirut just this morning. Netanyahu's apartheid state once again threatens to keep this war going, the same week in which Amnesty International accused his country of ethnically cleansing Palestinians from the West Bank, a crime against humanity that has largely flown under the radar given everything else going on in the region. Reece, get us started. Is this the week that Charlie Brown finally kicks the football?
Probably not. I've got a better chance of winning the lottery 5 times in a row and seeing the rare mythical unicorn than I think we have of actually signing a peace deal, especially since we keep bombing each other. In the midst of peace negotiations. Granted, I'm not a negotiation expert, but I don't think that's exactly how negotiations work. Bombing.
Listen,
no, I think Sally wins
President
again.
Trump, the best negotiator in all of human history, at least if you believe him, would say, "Oh, it's just a negotiating tactic. You got to go big. You got to show them that you're strong." Sharon, I don't know. What do you think? How many times are we going to see this? How many times are we going to run toward that football and have it pulled out from under us? It's all market manipulation. It seems like to me. I don't know.
That seems more logical than anything I've come up with. I have a term that I've coined in other situations in my life, and that's emotional whiplash. And that is what this feels like. It feels like we go to bed and there's, one thing being said. We wake up the next morning and there's something different being said. And it's just getting to be a lot. I actually almost wonder in some ways, market manipulation, but also are they just trying to tire us out so that we stop talking about it? But you would think that given how we, the American people and people all over the world, have pursued issues with the Epstein files, you would think they would know that we're not that type of populist anymore and that we are going to keep talking about it. So that part's just all very interesting. And I also really wonder sometimes what people around the world are thinking right now, other than the people who are directly involved in these conflicts.
Largely, I think we now in America are realizing what the rest of the world has known for a long time, and is that we are nuts, we are short-sighted, we are selfish. We care only about ourselves, and to hell with the rest of the world. And we're also easily distracted. Like you said, we'll talk about the thing, but not with any sort of just very willy-nilly. We'll get on it for a second. We'll talk about the thing, and then a shiny, distracting thing over here. It's Epstein. It's the war. It's the NBA Finals. There's just so much going on. You can't keep up with it all, and that is, Reece, part of the strategy with your Trump folks is to flood the zone, so you can't pay attention to any given thing. You can't focus your protest efforts on any one thing.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Well, and did you hear about the new UFC stadium at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Oh, we'll be talking about that here in a little bit, but yeah, for sure. And again, well, I'll say it now: bread and circuses, right? We are entertained to death, are we not, Reece?
Yes. I mean, I was watching the USA Open FIFA game, Go Team USA, and my dad, we have YouTube TV, and my dad changed, went to the channel selection, and there was a channel that had 4 different games. You could watch like the I think the NBA Finals, College World Series, MLB, and then FIFA. And it's just like, we at this point, we're so overloaded with just shit. And there are only 24 hours in the day, and we can only, time is a valuable resource. And if the zone is flooded with a whole bunch of shit, we can't accurately cover it, talk about it, or, as you said, protest it, because there's just so much we have to, try and cover.
I don't know if you remember this, Reece, but when I was growing up, I remember when you couldn't even have a television show at the same time as there's a bug, as a weather broadcast, an emergency weather broadcast, but now the emergency weather broadcast doesn't even take over. So it's, it's a whole thing.
You guys such wee babes. Like I remember the bunny ears. I'm that old.
Oh, I'm that old too. Thank you very much.
but back to the Iran of it all, and I don't know. Like, it seems like Trump really, really wants a way out of this. He's ready to tuck tail and surrender and run and basically admit defeat. They want the strait reopened. The economic consequences are severe now and only going to get worse as this thing lingers. Americans are unhappy with the war. They're unhappy with him. They're unhappy with gas prices. They're unhappy with the economy. Benjamin Netanyahu does not want to let him end this war, does he?
No, he does not. And they're just starting to reveal through this war the manipulation that's probably, we're not going to speak in absolutes, that has probably been occurring over the past several decades behind the scenes, and now we are seeing it in real time, in real life. I think that's actually, what's happening here. It's the facade has cracked, and now we're seeing, things that they've been able to manipulate without the typical person's knowledge until now.
Yeah. And
no, go ahead, Reece. I was going to say, where does this thing go? Where does this thing end? How do we get out of this?
It doesn't end because both leaders are fighting for their political life. Trump is, but they have different ways of surviving, because for Trump to survive, he needs to get us out of the war because he's seeing how deeply unpopular it is. And for Bibi to survive, he has to keep them in the war because it's a distraction from all the other, take Palestine out of the equation, like the judicial reforms. I know one of the huge conversations and debates right now is over, I don't know which sect of Jewish people, but ultra-Orthodox Jews being exempt from the military, which has drawn a whole lot of backlash from the rest of Israel. And so, like, it doesn't end because both men are fighting for their political careers, but the way they survive is vastly different.
And I mean, presumably, at least our leader appears to be fighting for his literal life. Don't know about BB, but at least our...
Yeah. Gee, happy birthday to the old fat orange bastard, by the way. That's today. 80. Let it be his last. I don't know. I'm just saying. Anyway, I guess with that, let's go ahead and turn the page. We're going to talk about the economy. Obviously, the Iran war is having a major effect on things like fuel prices for one, but fertilizer availability, cooking oil in the rest of the world. For Americans, we're beginning to feel inflation, which is now at a 3-year high. It hit 4.2% in May, with real wages falling 0.7% year over year. That means your money is worth less now than it was a year ago at this time. Hey, are we winning yet? Inflation is now outpacing wage growth for the second consecutive month. The president's response: I love the inflation. Now, the full quote concluded, you know why? Because as soon as this war is over, it's going to come down like a rock. But you probably don't want to be on record saying, I love inflation, ever, especially as Americans suffer.
And especially in the clip world we live in, because, yes, we often take things out of context, but it's still damaging.
Not a great look, right?
No, not a great look.
And here in Indiana, Hoosiers are especially hard hit. Our farmers have lost over $600 million in revenue from Trump's trade war with China. We are the 9th hardest hit state nationally, according to a new study from North Dakota State University. And United Way of Indiana reported this week that 38% of Hoosier households can't afford basic necessities. Those numbers coming the same week that Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire. With SpaceX listing on the NASDAQ Friday, Musk's net worth jumped to $1.1 trillion, more than the next 4 richest people on Earth combined, more than the poorest 46% of the global population combined, more than double the GDP of his native South Africa, enough to buy 2.5 million median-priced U.S. homes, enough to buy nearly 2 years' worth of gasoline for the entire U.S. at Friday's average fuel price. Sharon, you got your pitchfork ready?
Yeah, a little bit. So I had the most horrifying thought the other day when I was getting gas. And that was, this doesn't feel so bad compared to the almost $5. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, it's still over $3. Actually, I got it for $2.99 just north of Indianapolis on my way home from convention. And that was when I had this thought. And I'm like, whoa, this is not like, they're also very slowly changing the narrative in our own brains because they like things are just more expensive. And so we're coming I should just speak for myself, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that's just like, well, this is just the new normal. This, $2.99 doesn't feel nearly as bad as the $4.99 from a couple of weeks ago. And that is incredibly scary because that means that if I'm having that thought, I can't be the only one. And that means that psychologically our brains are changing, and that is it's going to have an effect on how we fight, right? It's going to have an effect on how we protest. Also, the amount that we've lost from the China trade dispute, this is actually not here in Indiana, but this is affecting my family personally. We have a family in Missouri, and so, or we have a farm in Missouri, and so I know that this year was much more difficult for the soybeans that are sold from that farm as well. And so it's just one of those things where we don't realize. A lot of people I have heard say that, we should stop being so interconnected globally, that type of thing. But these systems have been put into place, and unfortunately, we are interconnected now. And so what happens in our part of the world does impact the rest of the world. And I can't even begin to talk about Elon Musk, other than the only positive I can find from that is that at least it's kind of being a fake trillionaire, since since it's all I read a really good article by Philip, I can't remember what his last name is, but he used to work with Elon Musk and then left. And he talked about how Elon Musk is just a paper trillionaire, at least right now.
Yeah. Well, Sharon, you made a good point about how we're sort of conditioned to accept things that were once unacceptable. And frankly, in the grand scheme of things in the world, nobody wants to hear me say this, but gas in our country is entirely too cheap. It should be much more expensive. It may be if we all felt the pain a little bit more, we'd actually get off the junk. But that's neither here nor there. You talked about accepting prices compared to what they once were, and how, well, it seems not so bad in comparison. Reece, I'm not sure billionaires should exist, let alone trillionaires.
No, I don't have anything else to add to that sentiment. One thing that's been playing in my mind is, okay, we've accepted the fact that we now have a trillionaire. Could it have been anybody else but Musk? I would have hated them just as much, but I would have taken Bill Gates as the world's first trillionaire. At least he's not a Nazi saluting.
At least he made his own stuff.
I mean, Bill Gates has
build up
problem.
on the backs of other people.
Yeah, but does it have to be Elon Musk? It just.
In a way, Reece, kinda, yeah, I think so. Because to amass that much wealth, I think you have to be a sociopath. So, to amass $1 trillion, you might have to be the world's biggest sociopath. And Elon Musk certainly seems to fit the bill. But to what Sharon's point, it's all on paper, right? This it's vaporware. That's all he ever sells. He doesn't make anything of actual value, to your point. I've got some good stats here pulled up, and actual friend of the pod, Max over at UNFTR, UNFTR.com, by the way, folks. Go subscribe to them over there. They do great work. But he put out an article saying exactly how much this thing is just built on paper. Morningstar valued SpaceX, the company, which, now consists of the actual SpaceX that does rockets and stuff, as well as Starlink and XAI. Morningstar put the value on that at $780 billion, and the IPO valued them at $2.2 trillion. So number one, it's overinflated to begin with. The addressable market that SpaceX claims to be tapping into is full of industries that don't actually exist yet, like the lunar economy and Mars transport and AI data centers in orbit. These things do not exist. All of his companies are under investigation. XAI for making child sex abuse material on demand, for polluting the areas where his data centers are built. The only thing they make that actually makes any money is Starlink, which I think has something to the tune of $20 billion in revenue a year. If you compare that, I think you mentioned Bill Gates. If you compare that to, say, a Microsoft, a company that has a market cap of half the value of SpaceX now, of XAI, they had revenue something like $300 billion. This is all, it's a bubble. It's gonna pop, and regular Americans, Sharon, are gonna pay for it because Musk used his power and his leverage to get this thing listed on the NASDAQ ahead of any of the thresholds that companies normally have to meet before being publicly listed. People's 401ks are going to go into this now. That's not my money. That's somebody's money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's... So in other words, you're saying, so if you have a 401k and it's like the normal building one, which is what I have, I don't mess with it, I should be okay, right?
Though a lot of those retirement accounts, they just invest in index funds. So you will invest in the Dow or the NASDAQ broadly. Well, if you're invested in the NASDAQ, some of your money is going to buy the shares in this. When he and his founders and the people who have a lot of the priority stock now dip out, who's going to be left holding the bag? And Reece, the point of that, all of this guy's wealth is largely built on public funding. During the Obama administration, they funneled a lot of subsidies and stuff toward Tesla because we wanted to develop an electric car industry. It was actually a good thing to do, and this is the wrong guy to do it for. But and also, you know, unloading some of the burden on NASA for space travel. This guy is the biggest welfare queen on the planet, and he's living high on the hog on all of us.
But he doesn't own a house. So, you know, he's a literal couch surfer.
On that point, Scott, I was watching a video on the failures of Tesla. And one of the things that I found just absolutely hilarious is I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but like the way Tesla was profitable for most of its time was by selling its carbon tax credits, which are things that the government gives to corporations. You can pollute this much, but as soon as you go over, and because Tesla wasn't polluting because they're an EV company, they had a shitload of tax credits, carbon tax credits to sell. And here's a great example of Musk shooting himself in the foot. Guess who got rid of those carbon tax credits? Trump.
Oh, yes. Well,
he got rid of them. And so all of a sudden, all of those carbon tax credits that Tesla has amassed and has been used to selling off are worthless, or at least near worthless, which I just personally found hilarious.
Yeah, that's
I think Elon's going to be fine, though, isn't he? Let's stay on this thread in a way, but change gears, because, you know, you'd think with a net worth over $1 trillion, Elon would be a happy boy. But this miserable shit has spent much of the week stoking anti-immigrant riots. In Northern Ireland, a local man was brutally knifed by a Sudanese national. The victim, Stephen Ogilvy, lost an eye in the attack and remains in a medically induced coma. Though this is a tragic event, it is an isolated incident, okay? Still, mobs of masked men have taken to the streets there, burning houses and vehicles, hunting for anyone they believed to be an immigrant. And Musk repeatedly amplified the unrest on his social media platform, posting, quote, "Murderous migrants beheading innocent people in their hometown is what's making people angry, not social media," and reposting claims that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, quote, "hates white people," alongside an image of the black suspect captioned, quote, "millions must go." Even the victim's own family asked people not to exploit this attack for political violence, stressing migrants' valuable contribution to society. And here in the U.S., where Musk has also stoked anti-immigrant sentiment, mind you, we learned this week that since October, the only refugees this country has admitted have been white Afrikaners from Musk's native South Africa. Meanwhile, immigrants of color in New York are under threat as Trump borders are. Tom Homan threatened to flood the city with ICE agents after Governor Kathy Hochul signed a law barring local police from cooperating with ICE, prohibiting agents from entering state property without a warrant, and banning ICE agents from wearing masks in public interactions. And ICE just got a huge cash infusion, with House Republicans approving $70 a $70 billion appropriation fund for ICE, Border Patrol, and DHS through 2029. Reece, I don't know. Where do you want to start here? I guess let's stay on Musk. Like, this guy has done more to spread racism in this world than he has done to spread human consciousness to the stars, which is what he talks about all the damn time.
No, I mean, I don't even know where to begin because it's disgusting. I mean, yes, we should acknowledge the fact that something horrific happened. An innocent life was lost. The person happened to be in the country illegally. But it is, you can see I'm just sort of at a loss for words because it's just inhuman. I mean, the way that we have made some things as trivial as where your nation of origin is into this like big problem is like, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have chromosomes. We all, share DNA. There's really not much aside from the color of our skin and the accent of our voice that separates us. And the fact that people just somehow can't grasp that is unconscionable, mind-boggling.
Yeah, Sharon, you can take the boy out of apartheid South Africa, but you can't take apartheid South Africa out of the boy. But to Reece's point, like you said, we're all human. We are different in the amount of melanin, the amount of pigment we have in our skin, and what artificial lines we were born in. This is an unfortunate case, but it is one isolated incident, and folks like Musk would rather have mobs of people with pitchforks and torches coming for their immigrant neighbors than for the actual people causing harm to our society, like Elon Musk.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, I believe, evidence that, Elon Musk is directly related to people from Germany in the 1930s and 40s that, escaped to South Africa. I go back to what the Artemis crew said about 2 months ago, which is that when you're able to see the Earth from the vantage point that they were able to see the Earth, there are no borders. There are no things that separate us. And it is a narrative that is entirely driven by the people who want to be the richest of the rich, just like in medieval times, just like, ever since finances were invented. Well, even when trading was invented, it was whoever had the most items to trade that, it just seems to be this fundamental part of humanity that we can't seem to overcome, which is just appalling, especially to call ourselves more enlightened or more informed than we ever have been before.
Yeah, and Reece, let's bring it here stateside and talk about the immigration on our end here. During Joe Biden's administration, he was allowing somewhere in the neighborhood of 125,000 refugees in annually, and that's not that's immigrants. These are refugees. These are people who are under real threat in their home country from political persecution or what have you. And folks like Musk in South Africa perpetuate this racist myth of quote unquote white genocide, right? And therefore the people in South Africa who had the most, who have spent generations extracting the value of that country's natural resources for themselves. Somehow they're the victims and they are persecuted and need special admittance into our country. Meanwhile, we are letting actual victims of political violence and persecution in their country stranded throughout the world while we are inviting these white Afrikaners to our country and nobody else.
Yeah, no, it's laughable. It's absurd. I mean, these are people who is well documented that, you know, they exploited not only human capital but also the environment to make themselves insanely wealthy. I mean, if we want to tie back to Elon Musk is only where he's at in large part because his daddy owned part of an emerald mine in South Africa. And his daddy made, I don't know what his daddy's net worth was, but I would assume millions off of that, which gave Elon Musk a head start. And if there really is such a thing as a white genocide going on, I think it would be important to accept those refugees in. But it isn't happening. Like, there's no evidence. There's nothing to even justify, aside from racism and white supremacy, the importance of accepting these white Afrikaners to America on some sort of special admittance list.
They are the softest people you can imagine, right? You know, what's the phrase, Sharon? When you're accustomed to privilege, equality looks like persecution. That's what's going on here. Oh my God! Oh, stop! We're being repressed. No, it's equality. You live in a country where you are the minority and you have all of the wealth. Get over yourselves and deal with it. And then, you know, just to end this segment, Sharon, here. We're throwing another $70 billion at ICE for the next 4 years.
Which is just gross. It's just absolutely gross that, like, for the record, I don't want this to happen, but if you're going to stop immigration, then stop immigration. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to fight it, then you can't have the door swing both ways. You need to, and for the record, I would prefer that we just continued letting people in, especially those who need to get out of the situations that they are in across the world. But the fact that we are now literally hunting people down across the country and have been for quite some time, and are doing it to people who are going to their hearings and who are participating in the process, and we're just spending more money to try to rid the country of the people that several someones have decided are not the right people that we want here. It's just total crap.
We're being run by a bunch of white nationalists, and yet these people have the temerity to enjoy and revel in black excellence, in culture, in sports, in music, you know, in all of these things, and yet pursue these disgusting, racist, horrific policies.
I just caught one thing that I didn't see before: the fact that the attempt to block the January 26 rioters from receiving the anti-weaponization bill, the fact that they weren't able to stop that, and that they don't see the problem with that, is just abhorrent.
Well, theoretically, that quote unquote weaponization fund for the Trump administration dropped that, and only then did the House pass the $70 billion bill. But we'll see if that thing's zombie legislation. It's going to pop up again somewhere. You just watch. So, I mentioned excellence in sports. We've invited the rest of the world here to partake in the world's most popular game. The World Cup started this week and hosted jointly by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And, of course, Trump's anti-immigrant extremism has already put a damper on the festivities. Trump's immigration policies prevented a decorated Somali referee from entering the country. An Iraqi team photographer was turned away at O'Hare. Iran's team was barred from staying overnight in the U.S., even though that's where all their games are. They've been forced to base in Tijuana, Mexico, and over 40 Moroccan Fan Association members with tickets and hotel bookings were denied visas. 4 World Cup nations, Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, are on the U.S. travel ban list. 19 countries have had all visa issuances suspended entirely. And soccer's corruption-riddled governing body, FIFA's response was essentially a shrug, saying, quote, a host government ultimately determines who receives a visa. One sports politics professor called it raising the surrender flag. And politics intersects with sports in more than one way this week, as tonight, celebrating Trump's 80th birthday in the most white trash way possible. The show, they're hosting this UFC fight on the White House lawn, and the show will go on despite a lawsuit attempting to block the event, which labeled it a volcano of corruption, citing the $1 million VIP packages, corporate branding around the Lincoln Memorial weigh-in, and an exclusive Paramount Plus streaming deal. This is the Paramount Skydance of Trump allies Larry and David Ellison, and the Trump family, in conjunction with political ally and UFC owner Dana White, are issuing commemorative coins to mark the event, ranging in price up to $12,000. I believe it was Andrew Breitbart that said politics is downstream of culture, but here culture is downstream of politics. It is a weird world we live in, and now Reece, like, I don't. You guys fan of the show American Dad? There was an episode where Stan, the main character, was hosting like bum fights in a ring he set up in the backyard of a house, and all I can see is that when I see Trump's UFC octagon going up on the south lawn of the White House.
All I see is Terry Crews with the horrible mullet situation going on. I mean, it seems like a scene straight out of Idiocracy. Like, I don't know what to tell. Like, I love that movie. It's a really good social commentary on where we could very well be heading as a society, and what it's well, right. let me get there. It's set like in 100 or so years in the future, something like that, and we're living it now. And it's just like, Idiocracy is supposed to be a fun movie and a warning tale, not a manuscript.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's a documentary at this point. Well, Sharon, it's giving Idiocracy. It's also giving Roman gladiator performing before the emperor vibes.
So what's really interesting to me about particularly the issue with FIFA, there's data that shows that we are losing tourism dollars across all kinds of places because people from other countries are not coming to visit us at the levels that they normally are, and Americans can't afford to travel in the way that they normally would. This just dawned on me. One of Donald Trump's main industries is built on tourism. He's killing his own industry by playing the games that he is playing. Or
yeah, but he's getting his name in headlights.
Well, yeah, right, exactly.
He's making up for it in crypto and other corrupt schemes, yes.
But that's just a point that I wanted to make. I'm just like, but it's just incredibly sad because obviously these games, FIFA, were given to us before he was even made president, because I assume that it's in every 4 years, like they do it several years in the future, just like they do with the Olympics. And so we wouldn't have known this, and yet he's he's turned it into a complete crap show. And then the whole UFC thing, there's this image going around that shows what the White House used to look like and what it looks like today from space, or a drone image or something. And Washington, D.C. is my favorite city in the country. And to just see what's happening to it is just absolutely disgusting. But I was actually having
the worst neighbors moved into the neighborhood,
Right. Yeah. I was having a conversation yesterday, and I'm like, okay, how far back does this thing with Donald Trump even go with UFC? Because I'm like, it just seems like it was a special interest that popped out of nowhere. And apparently he has been interested in it for over 20 years, which is interesting. But this is just his attempt to, I don't even know anymore. It's just making me bad.
To make us go, I don't know anymore.
It is the official phrase of living in the Trump era. I don't even know anymore. It really is. This whole thing, it's frying all of our brains, and that very much is part of the point. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I always say it's flooding the zone. It is all of the things. Let's change gears. This one's an unrelated story, but we talked about it last week, and I want to talk about it again this week briefly. So we mentioned that Trump had nominated his controversial ally Bill Pulte to serve as the next director of national intelligence. This despite Pulte having zero intelligence experience, and if you listen to some around him, zero intelligence, but that's neither here nor there. The pushback was so severe and so bipartisan that the president has pulled his nominee and is now nominating Jay Clayton for the job. Clayton is a former chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, current U.S. attorney for Manhattan, and like Pulte, also has no operational intelligence experience. Still, senators on both sides of the aisle seemed much more amenable to Clayton, but Intelligence Committee Vice Chair Senator Mark Warner said the Senate won't move to consider an extension of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act until Pulte is removed from his role as acting DNI. Now, for his part, Clayton's SEC nomination back in the day drew scrutiny over his Wall Street conflicts, including defending Deutsche Bank in a Russian oligarch sanctions evasion case settled for $425 million 10 days into Trump's first term. We don't have to talk about this for a whole lot of time, Sharon, but it was interesting to see the Republican pushback on this Pulte guy. He is such a ghoul, so incompetent that even they didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Did they learn nothing from the Tulsi Gabbard situation?
She looked competent and well qualified compared to this guy.
Right, absolutely. She looked, and the thing is, she probably was. She just had these ties to Russia, and very early on, it seemed like she was definitely engaging in some bad behavior, right? But to take that and then turn the page on someone who is very clearly significantly less capable. And now we've already seen once what happens when someone who has even, I guess she did have some intelligence experience, but not a lot. And now to nominate two people that have none, what are we even doing? Do you just not want us to have intelligence in this country from other places? Is that what are you, yes. How many other world governments are you protecting right now?
You could also just remove the from other places.
No.
Yeah. The DNI and the whole NSA, that sector, I know is extremely controversial. But bare minimum, I don't want if we have a DNI, if we have to have a DNI, I don't want them to be, quote, capable. I want them to be like the best person for the job. I want them to be like above, like go above and beyond, not just be, oh yeah, he's capable.
Well, yeah, and Reece, I think that's part of the what Trump does here is he sets the bar so low. He nominates the worst possible person for the job that whoever he comes up with second is going to look eminently more qualified by comparison.
I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened with Matt Gaetz and
I was about to say the same
Pam
thing.
Bondi.
Yeah.
And now whoever comes after, who's our current acting attorney? Todd Blanche, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stick a pin in Blanche. We're going to come to him in a second.
So yeah, no, it's just in any other administration, this would have been like a breaking news story, end of careers for people. And in the Trump administration, it's just another Tuesday.
Hey, he has a law degree and he might have a law license. Let's put him in.
This is an administration where the only qualification is loyalty, right? Competence be damned. As long as you will kiss the ring and do what daddy says, then you are qualified in his eyes, right, Sharon?
Yeah, and but the thing is, it's clearly not just his eyes. It is clearly because he's not the one making all these decisions. There's literally, based on what we've observed and how he communicates right now, including sleeping through meetings, he is not the one making a lot of these decisions. He is a figurehead at this point.
Wasn't sleeping. I was blinking. I was just a blink.
That voice horrifies me every time. You're both way too good at it, and you sneak it in.
But to your point, Sharon, and we'll wrap this segment up. It is oh my God. I lost it. I had it. Poof. No, that Trump is not the person making these decisions, and we do have to keep that in mind. His brain is pudding. He is sleeping through all the meetings. He's not really in charge. He's a figurehead for people like Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt, who are both more evil and more competent and operate from the shadows where they have, big guy blocking out the sun. So, we talked about Clayton and his potential unsavory relationships with Russians. Let's talk about somebody else who maybe had unsavory relationships with Russians. This week, Microsoft founder Bill Gates testified about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He told the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday that he maintained a relationship with the convicted child sex trafficker purely for philanthropic connections and that it was a, quote, grave error in judgment. Gates also relayed that Epstein pressured him into maintaining a relationship using knowledge of the Microsoft founder's affairs with two Russian women as leverage. Also on the Epstein front this week, an excerpt from an upcoming book by New York Times reporters Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan dropped. It detailed the chaos behind a February 2025 briefing where former Attorney General Pam Bondi distributed binders containing select Epstein files to MAGA influencers. Remember that one? Multiple meetings in the Situation Room where Trump cabinet officials debated how to handle the fallout from the increasing evidence linking the
that's what the
Epstein.
Situation Room's for.
Exactly. It certainly is a situation. It also detailed a call in which Trump scolded the late Charlie Kirk for talking about the files. At the center of this cover-up sits Todd Blanche, Trump's nominee to replace Bondi as AG. A group of 19 Epstein survivors released a statement this week opposing his nomination. And next week, Epstein's longtime assistant Leslie Groff is due to testify before oversight. The DOJ files show Groff arranged for girls as young as 14 to be picked up from high schools to give Epstein, quote, massages. She has not yet been charged with any crime. Reece, you already said it. That's not what the Situation Room is for, man.
I mean, I remember seeing the pictures coming out of when we took out Bin Laden, and Obama and Biden are in the Situation Room with all the generals, intensely watching the situation going down, and it just like that's what the Situation Room's for. National emergency things, not dear leader is in trouble. How do we help him? But
well, see, we have heard from journalists that Epstein said that he and Donald Trump were best friends for 10 years in the 80s and 90s. See, Trump would say, well, we weren't best friends. It was a situationship. Sharon, sorry, I had to do it to you again. But
you've found
Bill Gates.
You found my weakness.
Yeah, no. What do you make about the Bill Gates of this all?
Well, I mean, we had inklings that there had been, involvement with Bill Gates. There had been, rumors and whatnot that was a big reason why him and Melinda Gates ended up getting divorced. I think a grave error in judgment doesn't happen multiple times. Generally, when you have a grave, and also Russia keeps getting brought up.
Yeah, well, it's in the words of Sarah Kendzior, we have an international organized crime syndicate masquerading as a government. Trump was a node in that syndicate. Epstein is a node in that syndicate. Mossad is a node in that syndicate, and there are many, many Russian actors in that syndicate. I urge folks to look into an oligarch named Semyon Mogilevich, who is probably the person who's actually running the world right now, if you want to get conspiratorial about things. Reece, thoughts?
Just to piggyback on what Sharon said, like a grave mistake is what Graham Plattner did with sending nudes to consenting adults shortly into his marriage. That's a grave error in judgment. This really isn't, and like I'm just not buying it because Bill Gates, love him or hate him, he's one smart dude. Like, he's probably one of the smartest people alive right now. I mean, just arguably speaking, with everything he's made and done, and just I feel like hiding behind. I feel like he's just hiding behind the. Well, I was just having relations with him because he was promised to give me money.
It's a really good Gates. Yeah.
It's like, how long does it take you to realize what our show notes say? Gates met Epstein in 2011 and he cut Epstein off in 2014. That means for 3 years, Epstein was just dragging that man around. It's like,
and that was also after he was first convicted of child sex crimes in 2008 that they cultivated this relationship. Now, listen, everything you want to say about Epstein, all of the most horrible things are likely true, but the man was an expert manipulator, and this is what his job was in that multinational crime syndicate, was to cultivate relationships with powerful and important people and then use blackmail and leverage over them to manipulate markets and governments and all other things. And, however smart of an individual Bill Gates was, everybody's got their thing, right? Everybody's got their insecurities. Maybe it's like, he's like, oh, I'm the richest man in the world. I invented this. I founded Microsoft. I've, created all these wonderful things that people use, but I'm still a nerd and I, can't get laid. You throw some young Russian women at him and, he melts like an idiot. everybody's got something, don't they, Sharon?
Yeah, they really do. And then going down to the influencer binder briefing, also, like, words just I thought that we had moved past binders of people after the whole Mitt Romney thing back in 2012. I didn't think we were doing that anymore. And yet the word binders keeps getting brought up. I mean, I know they use them, but it's just like, why would you do that with people? Do security clearances just mean nothing anymore?
In the Trump administration, we're pretty sure that they mean nothing anymore, because all of his people, if he wasn't elected into office, he couldn't pass a security clearance. The man can barely pass a cognitive test. Let us take.
He's passed them
100%.
3 times. Or 5 times, or however many times he's taken it.
Best results ever. Woman, man, camera, TV, giraffe, rhinoceros. Got them all. 100%. All right. We are at the halfway point of today's show. Let us take a minute to hear from our friends Crossroad Commons down in Salem. We'll be back in about 45 seconds.
Crossroads Commons in Salem, Indiana, headquartered in a historic Salem home, is holding a fundraiser to expand via the purchase of the 3/4-acre lot of land adjacent to their facility. Please consider donating or spread the word so that they can further expand their services to the community. Scan the QR code on your screen for a direct link to the donation page and help us buy the grass.
All right. I should also link to that one in my show notes. I always forget to do that part, but if you're watching, that QR code on the screen will get you where you need to go. Renee and her people down there in Washington County are doing great work. So listen, I'm glad I put that ad spot there to put some distance between Epstein and our next topic, schools. A handful of stories from Indiana this week. From WFYI, Indianapolis homeowners and educators are split over a new property tax plan for IPS and the city's charter schools. Indianapolis public schools face a $40 million deficit as its 2018 operating referendum expires this year. The new mayor-appointed Indianapolis Public Education Corporation Board must decide on a new property tax referendum rate for the November ballot, ranging from roughly the current rate up to nearly triple it. IPEC votes on June 22nd, and Indianapolis is one of 40 to 50 communities that could see school tax referendums on their ballot this year, driven by two 2025 state law changes. SEA 1's property tax deduction increases that will drain an estimated $338 million from school districts by 2028, and a new rule limiting referendum votes to November general elections in even years only. And over in Richmond, this is near your neck of the woods, Reece. IU East is set to launch a public charter school. IU East set to launch a public charter school on its campus this fall, with freshmen taking traditional high school courses and juniors and seniors eventually earning college credit alongside IU East students. The local public school superintendent, not a fan of this. Losing even 50 students could cost his district roughly $350,000 and mean cutting teachers, and IU East never consulted the local school corporation before announcing the plan. And another IU campus in Indianapolis, lecturer Jessica Adams will not be reappointed following a performance review. She was suspended last year for failing to promote, quote, intellectual diversity in her class after receiving an anonymous complaint. She showed a pyramid of white supremacy graphic in her class that listed the phrase "Make America Great Again" as a form of covert white supremacy. Reece, she's not wrong.
No, she's really not. Because, I mean, if you take a look, historically speaking, when has America ever really been great? what they really mean is make white America great again, but that doesn't flow as well on a hat. Are our public schools a mess? Absolutely. But the answer and the solution is not to privatize the schools. It's to reinvest in the schools. My father's a public school teacher. I come from a decently long line of teachers. 3 out of the 4 of my grandparents were college professors at public universities. And so education is really important to me. And you know how many times I remember when I was a kid going with my dad to one of those teacher supply stores to buy out of his own pocket supplies and decorations for his classroom. It's just, yes, our schools are failing. That's like a fact. But the remedies are just kicking the horse while it's down and making the situation even worse. And I'm not
Let's
here
tie
for
these
it.
things all together, Reece, because not listed on Professor Adams' pyramid of white supremacy was defunding public schools, and yet the whole school privatization movement, school vouchers, those were born in the wake of Brown versus the Board of Education, when the Supreme Court, back when we had a Supreme Court that actually cared about advancing our country and its founding ideals, when they desegregated the public schools in 1953, white supremacists immediately freaked out. They're like, they would rather burn their school systems to the ground than send their little white darlings to school with black kids. We saw whole school districts in like Virginia and Maryland at the time shutter rather than desegregate. And you see it now. To Reece's point, Sharon, if our public schools have problems, and they do, it's precisely because of those things back upstream. It's been a 60, 70-year whittling away from public schools to privatize them for profit and for white supremacy.
So like Reece, I come from a long line of educators. My mother's degree is in music education. My grandfather was a librarian at Indiana, or he was the head librarian at Indiana State University for many years. I spent my childhood also doing similar things to what Reece did. I'm an educator myself. Education is, and then I have dozens of family members who are in education in one form or another. It is incredibly important. And one of the things that we have to remember is that like we're almost putting the failure before the horse. And what I mean by that is we've only really been doing this at the level that we've been doing it for 60 or 70 years. As soon as they desegregated, that was when we got the school system in the way that we have now, where everybody could attend. It was actually equal because, they were trying, but then they were also being fought against the entire time. And it takes time for things to become perfected. It takes, and the thing is, as soon as they started doing it, they were like, well, it's failing, so we're going to start doing something else. And we've never given it the real shot that it needs to be given. The tax referendum thing is, first of all, it's only needed because of those changes at the state level, which, if I'm elected, will be one of the first things that I will be going after because it's ridiculous. And the thing is, public charter schools, or charter schools in general, are generally just not held to the same standards that public schools are. And the reason why people largely want to send their kids there is because then they will be around kids that are quote unquote exactly like them. And that is, I mean, that is just at least one of the main reasons that I've heard. Like, that's why you send your kid to private school, because, you know, you're going to have religious education or XYZ. And I have a real problem with them as a product of public schooling myself. I also have a major problem as someone who's been a higher ed educator with what's going on in our schools. I've talked to former professors, or I've talked to professors kind of across the state, educators across the state in higher ed, and they are definitely being suppressed and aren't allowed to talk about things in the same ways that they used to, which means that students are getting a washed down education, which is just going to perpetuate the issue.
Yeah. And let me tell you, so we talk about the reason that our public schools need to have these referendums is that they're, you know, not being properly funded by our tax dollars. You know, in addition to the property tax issue, another thing that we could do is tax all these damn AI data centers. You know, we found out a couple weeks ago that the state has foregone over $650 million in revenue just since 2022 because of tax abatements for data center construction. And that's just the beginning. Indiana is far and away the leader in tax subsidies given to these firms, with over $8 billion in future incentives promised to Amazon alone. With terms like that, it's no wonder they keep coming. The proposed DC Blocks data center in Indianapolis' Irvington neighborhood cleared a regulatory hurdle this week, and one East Side resident filed an ethics complaint against Republican City County Councilor Michael Paul Hart, who has nominally remained neutral on the fight over that data center, but has failed to disclose that he works for a company that sells AI services to the city. On the northwest side, Indianapolis residents want a new Eagle Creek Reservoir water deal. Citizens there are afraid of the LEAP data center district in Lebanon drawing down the reservoir, leaving less drinking water for Indianapolis, and also harming the fish and bird populations that depend on Eagle Creek Reservoir. And then over in Reece's area, in an 8-1 vote, the Madison County Planning Commission voted to send a data center moratorium to the county council, who will make the ultimate decision there. That proposed moratorium would halt the development of any data centers for 6 months. So, Reece, I'm going to start with you there. Two sort of different things going on here, right? We see Indiana has given away the farm, oftentimes literal farmland, to these data centers, to build these massive buildings, which will have, again, they'll have some jobs up front during the construction, but employ, 6 people and a Roomba once they're constructed, and they're not paying their taxes, right? The taxes that they could be paying could be going toward our defunded public school system. Indianapolis welcoming these things with open arms. Democratic Mayor Joe Hogsett and many of his people on that city county council. Yes, please, put them all over the place. There are multiple data center projects in Indianapolis going up. All over the state, they're going up. Your county, not so fast, my friend. They don't want them.
No. I unfortunately was unable to attend the Planning Commission meeting because it was held at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, which is oh so convenient for, working people. But from the reporting, and then I actually reached out to the IPR reporter, which is one of the reasons I love public radio, and sort of asked him some questions, and he got back to me. And this is an example. This 8-1 vote is an example of elected government, or no, Planning Commission isn't elected, they're appointed, but of government officials actually listening to the people. He told me that it was standing room only, and that people were actually denied entry into the meeting space because it would have broken fire code. And only a handful, like he didn't take exact numbers, but he said maybe 2 or 3 people in total spoke against the moratorium, with one of them being the executive director for the county's Economic Development Corporation, which doesn't surprise me at all. And there were dozens of people who spoke in favor of the moratorium. Now, an important thing to note is that this is a preventative measure. There have yet to be any actual data centers proposed in Madison County, but what it would do is it would give the county government 6 months to research, to investigate, to see, the upsides and the downsides of having data centers in the county. And that's important. Doing research,
nailing up a keep out sign, right? But
doing research.
Listen,
oh my,
yeah. Reece, I'm hopeful for your community that they keep these things out of the area. But what you see repeatedly, Sharon, is stuff like this, these packed meetings before this plan commission. All the people there are against it. Now, this plan commission, for example, they voted to go forward with this moratorium. Well, they're going to forward this on to the county commissioners, right? Well, are the county commissioners going to vote for this thing? You see this in Indianapolis repeatedly. Folks pack these meetings. They tell people they don't want them. And they go to the zoning board. They tell people they don't want them. They go to the county council. People don't want them. And eventually, when it comes down to it, the ultimate decision makers are like, yeah, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. We're actually dealing with something similar but different up in Fort Wayne, where we have this no quarry movement that's happening. And it got voted down by, I believe it was the zoning commission, and then got revoked. But a week later, the lawyer for the organization that wants to build the quarry came back and was like, well, but here's this law that, we didn't really talk about last week. And so it's just one of those things where the public has to get used to, whether we're talking about data centers, whether we're talking about land, like anything that we're talking about, land rights, whether we're talking about human rights, we have to get used to the fight doesn't end after the first fight. Like that, these really are wars that we are in the middle of. And the fact, the fact that we have this issue with funding education, but we're losing this money to data centers, and we have a surplus. I'm just going to.
We're not managing our money well in this state, are we? They point to the surplus as a sign of our fiscal health in Indiana. But, and listen, you got to have a rainy day fund, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes a surplus means that you're not spending sufficiently on public services.
Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be a balanced budget in the government, which to my mind means no debts and no extra money floating around. And it means that public service, we shouldn't have, for example, another thing that I don't think we're discussing today, but I'm going to bring it up. Our volunteer firefighter wings across the state are also losing funding, which should make people very, very concerned. If you cannot
it
fight,
should make people concerned that we have volunteer firefighters.
Well, that
period.
too.
Right?
I don't want to rely on a volunteer whose day job is, I don't know, teaching high school, since we're talking about education.
Yeah, we shouldn't
coming to
have
save me from
right.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to.
Well, listen, when the AI data centers replace all of the white collar jobs and the automated factories replace all the blue collar jobs, then firefighting is going to be one of the few things that they can't replace. Maybe then we will actually pay to have professional firefighters, excuse me, in every community.
Well,
in our state.
when the data centers start exploding because they're made out of electrical components, and we start having massive fires, maybe then
I suspect if the data centers catch on fire, it's going to be because people come with torches and pitchforks to burn them down rather than what's going on the inside. So there were elections this week. We've got a bunch of electoral stories to talk about. And I want to start by sticking on the Indiana angle, though. So a couple stories we saw. Now, Indiana Republicans are suggesting that the state close their primaries. This due largely to the Senate District 23 fight in which MAGA candidate Paula Copenhaver was lost to incumbent moderate, and that word's doing a lot of work, Republican Spencer Deary by all of 3 votes. A new bill is already being drafted for the next session. The irony, of course, is that Governor Mike Braun himself repeatedly voted in Democratic primaries before running as a Republican, because back in the day in Du Bois County, you had to be a Democrat if you wanted to get anything done. Things have since changed, certainly. Crossover voting has a long history in the state on both sides. Now, also in Indiana voting news this week, we learned that the state has rejected or canceled the voter registrations for more than 62% of immigrant Hoosiers flagged under a 2025 proof of citizenship law. Now, this law flags anyone who used a temporary credential number on their registration application and then gives them 30 days to produce a birth certificate or a passport or naturalization papers. Voting rights groups have already filed for a preliminary injunction against this thing. Indiana Secretary of State Diego Morales himself is a immigrant, a naturalized citizen, has been an enthusiastic supporter of this thing. Reece, this is a hoop. I'm going to imagine most of those people, the vast majority, if not everybody, every immigrant on the voting rolls is there legally. But this is a hoop. They're going to knock people off. People aren't going to submit their paperwork in time. It's going to lessen the voting population. And as you know, for Republicans, the less people vote, the better they do.
Yeah, I mean, as my dad would say, you can't register to vote if you're not legally here. So yeah, why are we doing this? Bottom line, like you said, it's because Republicans are afraid that when more people turn out to vote, they lose power. I mean, we're already seeing this in election after election with the Indiana primaries. I don't remember the percentages, but I know Democratic turnout here in Indiana's primary just soared by like maybe 30%. I could be completely wrong with that number, but
it depends on the communities. But Hamilton County saw like a 250% increase in Democratic participation in their primaries there. Very impressive stuff.
They are seeing the numbers. They're seeing the writing on the wall. They are feeling which way the political wind is blowing, and they are doing everything in their power to hold on to power because they're insecure and they need power to feel secure.
Sharon, what do you think about this closed primary proposition from the Republicans on their hand? As it is, I think our primaries are too restrictive. I mean, you go in there, you have to choose either a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot. Why don't we do things like they do, say, in California, where you have like jungle primaries and you can just choose the top 2 candidates regardless across the board, one ballot every primary election you go in. Maybe you choose 2, maybe you choose 4. There are better, more democratic ways to do this. Certainly, they want to make things less small d democratic.
Does that shock anybody in Indiana?
No.
I mean, I'm a big advocate for ranked choice voting. I think that it ensures that no matter what color you wear, what color you claim to be part of, that hopefully the most qualified person gets into the role or gets to be on the ballot, right? And it gives people
or at least
more
the
choice.
People acceptable to the largest number of people, right?
The most capable people, perhaps. But also it gives the opportunity for, additional party representation. I mean, all over the world, other more democratic countries have multiple parties that that aren't just part of their elections, that are actually represented. And I mean, I think that is where a lot of our failings are. And I think that it would also stop muddying the waters for primaries and having, where county chairs, we love our county chairs in a lot of cases. I'm very lucky. I have a very good county chair.
Pick your county,
Pick a county. But county chairs, get to choose whether they certify someone or not. And that is often based on their voting history. And, people can be thrown out of the election based on their voting history. And so those things, like having even more closed primaries, I just, and also as someone who, has always voted Democrat in primaries, but has tried to look for who the best person was in a general election, I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't like how we have to make that decision in our primaries.
Yeah,
so,
the way we do things is not great.
Yeah.
Certainly, I've actually got an interesting interview coming up. I'm interviewing a British author this coming Saturday who just had a book come out recently where he proposes a no-party system. I think one party is bad, two parties is almost as bad. A lot of parties potentially good, no parties interesting. I want to hear what he has to say, but let's talk about other states and election news this week. In Texas, interestingly, the defense lawyer for Republican Senate nominee Ken Paxton this week endorsed Democrat James Tallarico for that for that U.S. Senate seat, saying Paxton has, quote, lost sight of his core mission representing Texans. Now, we had primaries this Tuesday in Nevada. A Trump-endorsed candidate won the 2nd Congressional District Republican primary over somebody endorsed by the Republican governor there. Another win for Trump. In North Dakota, there were elections. 6 incumbent state lawmakers lost their seats in the GOP primary. Interestingly, it was the most vociferous culture warriors there who often lost their seats. We saw this in Idaho a few weeks ago, where the states that are like the most red meat Republican states are actually starting to get fed up with the culture war stuff as they see their state budgets rated and their states perform low on things like quality of life and education rankings. But I guess more interestingly, or at least more the elections that got more press on Tuesday happened in South Carolina, where Nancy Mace failed to make the runoff for the South Carolina Republican gubernatorial race. She was one of the few Republican women who defied Trump and pushed for the release of the Epstein files. Her political career now suffering for it. Also in South Carolina, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham defeated 5 GOP challengers and will be up for his 6th term this coming November. And in Maine, Graham Plattner won the Democratic nomination to challenge Susan Collins in November. A lot of controversy around Plattner lately. His politics are progressive populist. His personal life is messy, to say the least. Sharon, thoughts on either South Carolina, or if you want to tackle Plattner, you go ahead.
So the Nancy Mace thing is interesting, right? Like, first of all, it makes you giggle a little bit, but at the same time, it's another rung in this crew that, yes, they fought Donald Trump, but they have either entirely stepped down, as in Marjorie Taylor Greene's case, they've fought like hell, like in Thomas Massey's case, or they've decided, well, I'm going to go try to do something different, but give up my spot. So that way, So it's like they are all trying to find ways to abandon ship, or ships being abandoned for them. They're being forced to walk the plank. But it's just really interesting how this keeps happening, where the people who were actually trying to fight are leaving in droves. And we saw this in Trump's first run as well, right? Because Paul Ryan left. John Boehner, there's a name we haven't heard in a long time. John Boehner left.
Never thought we'd miss those guys, did we?
Right. Mitt Romney got more quiet. Mitch McConnell's announced that he's retiring at the end of his term. Like, all of these people are leaving, which, you know, you can't get mad about because that's what we wanted.
yeah.
But at the same time, they seem to be being replaced by more and more and more just people that you're like, how do these people live in my country? But the Nancy Mace thing was incredibly interesting. I actually didn't realize that she had given up her seat in Congress until a few minutes ago. I just saw that she was running for governor and that she lost. And then Lindsey Graham defeating GOP challengers is also really interesting, right? Because you would think as more and more people are opposing term limits, since he actually had people running against him, that people would have gone for one of those individuals.
I mean, we should note that Graham only won with 58% of the vote.
Right.
I don't have his electoral history, but I would wager a bet that is probably the worst victory he has had, worst primary victory he has had in his political career. Aside from maybe the first time he ran or something, but
yeah. Reece, though, well, let me get your thoughts on, and I just had like the worst thought cross my mind. Like, you know how you like smash two things together, and you were talking about Graham, and I heard Lindsey Graham, and I was thinking Graham Plattner, and now I'm imagining Lindsey Graham Plattner.
Oh no, please. No.
Do not use AI to make this. But your thoughts on Plattner's win in Maine on Tuesday.
I'm a huge Plattner fan. I still remember the day he launched, watching his campaign launch video. And I have to admit, I probably watched it like 2 or 3 times back to back, because it was like, as a political campaigner, it was everything I wanted. And then the drip started coming out, and I think that brings up a lot of mixed feelings and important conversations that we need to have. First off, you know, if a lot of the allegations, especially towards how he's treated women in the past, are true, that's abhorrent, and we need to recognize that. We also, and this is not an excuse, please nobody take this and clip this as an excuse, he didn't expect to run for office at any time. This was a person who was living his life, making mistakes, being human, who was then tapped for running for office. And I've never met Plattner. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a smart guy. And he had to have known that this shit would have gotten out eventually. And yet he still decided to do it. I think it's a really complicated just story, because, you know, on one side you have a lot of people pointing to these the sources as being either tied to Susan Collins or tied to maybe the Federalist Society or some other conservative think tanks. That makes you wonder, do these sources have motivation, and can we fully trust them? I will say one thing that I absolutely cannot buy or get behind is the argument that he knew what his tattoo was and kept it for years without covering it up. Because if we play it through, I know I have a Nazi tattoo on my chest. I know I'm a bodybuilder, and there are lots of pictures of me shirtless out there. I know I'm being tapped to run for Senate, which comes with the Oppo research. And I choose not to cover up my Nazi tattoo that I'm fully well aware of its meaning before I launch my campaign. That is like just the stupidest political decision I have ever heard. Like, it makes zero sense. And if that's how it went, then I think that level of stupidity is automatically disqualifying for him. So
everybody I know who's served in the military before the age of 25 has three things: a questionable tattoo, a divorce, and a Dodge Charger. Let us talk about California. They had elections 2 weeks ago, and they take a long time to count. So we're just getting some of the results in there. In Los Angeles, City Council member Nithya Raman wound up closing the gap and surpassing Republican Spencer Pratt for 2 spot in the LA mayoral runoff there. She's a progressive and will face establishment incumbent mayor Democrat Karen Bass in November. We also got a call on the governor's race, and Republican Steve Hilton will finish in the number 2 spot there and face Democrat Javier Becerra in November. Because these races took a long time to count, as is normal in California, they have a pretty lenient grace period for their mail-in ballots. Totally normal, totally within state law. Anyway, it took a lot of time for these results to come in. And of course, folks on the Republican side and President Trump himself are of course screaming election fraud in California because their preferred candidate didn't win. Now, about that, and boy, geez, here we are. Everything else we talked about this week, this story would have been top of the headlines in a normal political world, but Trump threw a tantrum and stormed off the set of Meet the Press last week in an interview with Kirsten Welker when he complained about the results of the California elections and screamed fraud. Welker, who is not exactly known to be like a heavyweight in journalism, she's typically a pretty easy interview. She pushed back on him, and he called her crooked and ripped off his mic and stormed out and made threw a tantrum essentially. But another media story I think this week will be far more consequential in the long run. And on Friday, the Justice Department announced that they will approve the $111 billion merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery with no conditions, no divestitures required, and no concessions, clearing a major regulatory hurdle for the deal that would combine CBS, Paramount Plus, Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers, HBO, CNN, many, many more, creating this giant media conglomerate. The combined entity would anticipate over $6 billion in cost savings, which is industry shorthand for massive layoffs. It has already drawn opposition for more than 5,500 Hollywood professionals, including such big names as Robert De Niro, Pedro Pascal, and Joaquin Phoenix. Now, the deal isn't done yet. The California Attorney General Rob Bonta has signaled state-level antitrust litigation. The European Union is investigating foreign investment by Saudi, Qatari, and Emirati sovereign wealth funds into this thing. And the UK's
also known as the Nightmare Blunt Rotation
opened up its own probe on Tuesday. Senator Elizabeth Warren said, quote, "This is terrible news for every American who doesn't want Trump-aligned billionaires to control what they watch and how much they pay," saying the fight isn't over. Reece, this is not good. We saw, CBS when the Ellisons took control of that media conglomerate. Paramount already was a huge business in its own right. Now it's going to grow even bigger, but they had to fire Stephen Colbert and neuter 60 Minutes, which we've just seen
Scott
in the last few weeks.
Scott Pell. I mean, we lost
Scott Pelley.
Well,
one
now
of the hallmarks in media journalism or TV journalism
that guy's a heavyweight. But now they're coming for CNN. So you can bet they're going to come for Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. You can bet they're going to come for South Park at Comedy Central. They're going to come for John Oliver at HBO. We are seeing Ellison State Media built in real time.
Yeah, I mean, never did I wish to harken back to. Oh, I'm really testing my political history knowledge. The late 1800s with Teddy Roosevelt and the Trust Buster. I would love if we had, a president and a government who actually took antitrust and anti-monopoly seriously. Because what happens when we have monopolies? Well, shit like losing Scott Pelley happens because he's all of a sudden against the wishes of Big Daddy Overlord, and just, I mean,
who are you gonna call? Trust Busters! Sharon, when Democrats ever take control of government again, they need to start prying apart all of these monopolies, not just the media conglomerates like this CNN or this CBS, Paramount, Warner Brothers monstrosity, but Amazon, other media conglomerates, anything that, they used to sue companies back in the 50s for capturing like 10% of a market. Now we are giving a clear runway to these massive companies to where there's only 2 or 3 in any given industry. When it's a monopoly by any other name, essentially.
Not to mention our food monopolies.
Oh yeah.
Reece stole what I was going to say about you stole nothing. But yeah, going back to the early, again, we are only 125 years out. And the fact that it has ebbed and flowed so much in that, went down to almost no monopolies at all and then started building them back up. It just further highlights the fact that it is very much the haves and the have-nots are against one another. And and I want to switch gears for just a second, because as a millennial woman, I find this situation with Spencer Pratt just absolutely hilarious. I did not watch the OC. I did watch other trash television when I was a little bit younger that Spencer Pratt was on. And so
The Hills, right? Was that him?
Or was it
I think
it might have been The Hills.
My ex made me watch The Hills.
I watched, I'm not going to say what I watched, but it was a bad show. It was a bad show that he was on. And I did not watch The Hills. I did not watch the OC. I think he might have been on both, but he was definitely on The Hills. You're right about that. But just watching this guy over the past 2 decades try to build a career has been absolutely hilarious. And just all of the different monopolies that have been allowed to build, and now we've stopped fighting them for some reason. We just have. And I feel like that, like you said, it's one of those things where we just have to build that back up, because if you think about the golden age of the country, that was when we would have had among the fewest monopolies in the 1950s and 60s.
When America was great, as some of these people would have you believe. They haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, have they? Let's move on. We've only got a little bit of time left here, so I want to talk about the capital punishment a little bit. So this week, a U.S. federal judge blocked Alabama from executing a man by nitrogen gas. The 11th Circuit had already reversed a lower court ruling that nitrogen gas was constitutional, finding it prevents a, quote, substantial risk of serious harm, severe pain over and above death itself. The first nitrogen gas execution in the U.S. took place in 2024, and it was excruciating, with witnesses describing the condemned man thrashing and in a way that was anything like they had ever seen in 4 previous executions. Now, somebody who will avoid the death penalty is Vance Boelter. This is the guy who this week pled guilty to assassinating Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and their dog, by the way. Like, what a ghoul. He avoids the death penalty under a plea deal with federal prosecutors. Prosecutors who have called the attacks political, with a handwritten confession letter to FBI Director Kash Patel referencing a vague investigation. Sometimes it was tied to COVID vaccines. Friends described this Boelter guy as an evangelical conservative struggling to find work. Now, Indiana, there is an Indiana angle to this all, like a story in the Indy Star this week. We are one of only 2 states, along with Wyoming, that bar journalists from witnessing executions, a policy a federal appeals court upheld 2-1 last week after media outlets, including the AP, Indiana Capitol Chronicle, and Indy Star, sued on First Amendment grounds. Indiana resumed executions in December of 2024 after a 15-year hiatus and have since executed 3 men. Listen, I think we've discussed at length over the course of this show and many other shows in our history here on this program that America is an outlier in the world and in the way we do things, and capital punishment is no different. This is not something that is often done in the Western world, and yet here we are trying to find new, unique ways to kill people, and if you're in Indiana, to do it in secret. Reece, thoughts?
I mean, this might sound strange, but like, I'm glad Vance Boelter is avoiding the death penalty, because I am like 100% anti-capital punishment. I think it is not the government does not have the right to take another person's life, full stop. And then, there's also the financial aspect that it costs a lot of money to kill somebody. And just, I mean, I think that taking 2 wrongs don't make a right? Like, I mean, most of the people on death row are on death row because they have killed somebody or many somebodies. And so what we as the government say, well, you killed people, so we're gonna kill you. That's just, I don't like it.
It's right off a bumper sticker, right? How do you prove that killing is wrong by killing somebody? I don't know. I forget how it goes. But Sharon, I want your thoughts on this. Indiana, to Reece's point, has spent millions of dollars executing those 3 men since just December of 2024, largely due to inability to be able to procure the drugs necessary for this thing, because what I was saying, the rest of the world doesn't allow this anymore. They won't sell you execution drugs because it is against the law in the countries where these things are made.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also really interesting. What happened with Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and their dog happened only a couple weeks after my dog passed away. And so like the whole thing was incredibly emotional for me. I was still very, very raw. I felt so much for their kids in that loss. But the fact that we are also fighting, like, people shouldn't want to watch this. And so I almost wonder if that's why Indiana doesn't show it. But at the same time, like, then you need to make sure that there's access for the people who were involved if you're going to do it. Otherwise, it just feels like you are trying to keep it a secret and are trying to not show the atrocities. And the reason why I said what I said previously is some people will watch it and it's like porn for them. So there's this this balance that you have to strike. I too do not support capital punishment. It's not something that I find that people should have to repay their punishment to society rather than kind of just be taken out of their misery, if that's the best way to put that.
No, it's very much the easy way out. And to your point, Sharon, like people shouldn't want to watch these things, but it is important for journalists to be there to supervise this, to show that the state isn't torturing people like they did in Alabama in that case with the nitrogen gas. So I've got to move on. Only a little bit of time left as we get to our last story. And so Thursday, a massive line of storms moved through the state. At least 9 tornadoes touched down across Indiana on Thursday night. According to WRTV, I saw yesterday afternoon, a meteorologist from Wish TV has said that 11 confirmed tornadoes were now reported from Thursday evening. That might still go up as damage assessments are done. That brings us up to at least 30 tornadoes so far in 2026. The annual average, mind you, is 22. We are going to blow past that, no pun intended. But this is, again, not just a random one-off stormy year, right? Climate change is real. It is happening now. There are other stories I'm linking to in our show notes. In Nevada, Lake Mead and Lake Powell are approaching a system crash. Lake Mead is Hoover Dam, right? So these could potentially leave much of the Southwest, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Southern California, without water if this thing goes to its logical conclusion. And perhaps even more concerningly, in the North Atlantic, off the coast of Greenland, there is an anomalous, cold, persistent patch of unusually cool water to the south of Greenland. Now, you might say, oh, well, so much for your global warming. See, it's cool water. No, what is happening is that Greenland is melting, and that fresh water in the ocean is pooling there and slowing down the entire something that's called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, which the Gulf Stream is a major, half of it carrying warm water from the Gulf of Mexico, still called the Gulf of Mexico, up to the North Atlantic toward Europe, which leaves places like Scandinavia and the United Kingdom having remarkably mild weather for as far north of latitude as they are. If this thing slows down or stops, you could be witnessing a new ice age in Europe. Congratulations. Sounds great. What could go wrong? And not to mention the consequences in the rest of the world. This thing could leave parts of the global south uninhabitable as well. And yet, Sharon, there are still folks in our country who deny that climate change is happening, that it's man-made, that we should even do anything about it. We're building these data centers that are massive energy consumers and building more fossil fuel capacity to power them. We're just letting her rip.
Yeah. I remember in the 90s when there was a lot of work done to repair the ozone layer and try to avoid stuff like 30 tornadoes in a spring happening in Indiana. Listen, Indiana has always been part of Tornado Alley. We've always been right at the very tail end of it, depending on what part of the state that you lived in. I'm a meteorology hobbyist. It's one of it's one of those things that I find just absolutely fascinating. Fort Wayne has always been at the very tail end of Tornado Alley. And what I find even more interesting is that I don't feel like we're hearing about as many tornadoes in what is traditionally Tornado Alley, which is Oklahoma and Kansas and a little bit of Nebraska. And so we're just, and after what was a particularly quiet year last year for hurricanes, I worry about what we're in for this year. We've seen, we did see a couple of pretty bad hurricanes last year towards the end of the year, but we're seeing such intense weather this spring. I wonder if they're going to start earlier. And if the earlier they start, the more likely it is that hurricane season is going to just be absolutely devastating. I mean, last year we saw towards the end of the year, we saw Asheville get washed out, or in areas near or in North Carolina get washed out. We saw that happen in other parts of the southern part of the country. And then we have Lake Mead, which is just so critical. We don't realize how much food is being built or being grown, particularly, I believe, in Southern California, but I think also in parts of New Mexico and that type of thing. And
like all of the country's lettuce comes from Arizona, which is like a crazy place. Like, why are we growing lettuce in Arizona? That we've taken this thing for granted. It's crazy. Reece, 2 minutes thoughts. We should sue the oil and gas and fossil fuels industries to pay for all of this and put them out of business.
That would be wonderful. I mean, that would require having courts that actually, don't
function.
throw those lawsuits out. Unlike Sharon, I'm not a weather nerd, but even I can see the extreme concern in having 30 tornadoes, and it's June and the average is 22. 30, it doesn't take a math expert to know that 30 is more than 22. And
it's not even summer yet,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is I guess a wee bit personal because one of my grandparents lives up in Lake County, and they are currently without power, and will be until I think Tuesday is what I was told.
Lake County got hit bad. Couple places there, and that's not the first time this year. We had tornado go through Lake County in April, I believe. It's crazy. And you can draw a direct line from the burning of fossil fuels to these tornadoes, damaging Hoosiers' homes and properties, and somebody's got to pay for this somewhere, and it shouldn't be us. So listen, guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. It is always a pleasure to talk to both of you, and you're just both so full of insights, and I enjoy having you every Sunday. I get a chance to talk to you. Where can our fine folks, our fans, connect with you online? Reece, you first.
I'm active on Facebook. I know the place for all the old people. But
that's where it's
my name. The only reason I'm on Facebook is because that's what the old people are, and old people like to vote. Instagram, I'm much less active, but Reece the alpaca, and I think that's about it for now. Popcorn Sharon.
All right. Yeah, Sharon, I told you I'd give you another chance to tell folks where they can help the campaign. Yeah.
You did. So electsharonwight.com, fortwayne.com, or Fort Wayne, good heavens, facebook.com/electsharonwight. And like I said, I'm having an event on June 25th in the evening. It's a campaign event, and kind of with a a anniversary of the overturning of Roe versus Wade theme, because it's something really important to me. I also wanted to point out I'm wearing a t-shirt for Fuerza Unita, which is an organization up here in Fort Wayne, helping our Latino populations with mutual aid, as well as helping, working to help get people in our Latino populations a little bit more involved in politics, to the point, or to the extent that they are able, considering the community is so under fire. So I wanted to give a plug to my friends at Fuerza Unita. They're doing a lot of great work, and they need help as well.
Very good. Well, again, thank you so much. And folks, you can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us, and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. Send me a DM on any of those, or email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. We can't do any of this without your help. Please support our work with a paid subscription at progressiveindiana.net, and follow us on social media at the full spelled out name, Progressive Indiana Network, on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it is PIN Indiana. Once again, thanks to Sharon and Reece for joining us today, and thank you for watching. Donate and volunteer for Sharon's campaign. Like, share, and comment, and leave a review for us. Let's keep building a radically democratic Indiana together. Until next time, I'm Scott Aaron Rogers, signing off from Bloomington. Love each other, Indiana.